Hey guys, Hi-Fri coming at you with another review. Today we have the Moondrop Lan. This was very kindly provided to me by Hifigo. I really appreciate it, guys. I know I'm a little bit late, but yeah, I just thought I'd share this with you guys. I haven't really paid attention to many other reviews, people reviewing it lately. I, I've heard mixed feedback from friends and whatnot, but I actually really like these. We'll talk about them here in a little bit, but yeah, I just want to go over some of the specs real quick. So, and I want to talk a little bit about the history too, because we're going to take a look at this driver. I think this driver is pretty interesting. It shares a little bit of history with Softears, so one of their IMs in particular. So yeah, let's get into it. So it's the Moondrop Lan. It's got a replaceable cable this time, so it's kind of modeled similar to the Chew. I don't have a Chew with me on the. I'm sorry, I'm looking on the table to see if I have a Chew somewhere. I do not. My Chew has disappeared somewhere. I forget where I put him, but anyway. But yeah, so similar design to the Chew. You know, it's just a small little IM, very low profile. Fits nicely in the ears. It could probably count as a sleeper IM. I know it's not really that kind, but if you use a small enough ear tip, I could imagine you could use these as a sleeper IM, especially because the faceplate is flat and the design is pretty flat. So anyway, so it's got a 10mm dual cavity high performance dynamic driver, and then it uses the CCAW, which is the copper coated aluminum wire. So anybody that's curious what CCAW means, it's copper coated aluminum wire. The diaphragm is beryllium plated dome, composite diaphragm, N52 magnet, acoustic filter. Yeah, a bunch of specs here. Curiously enough, the frequency response is 15 to 37 kilohertz. 32 ohms. These are not the most. So they say they're 120 dB sensitivity at 32 ohms at 1 kilohertz, but I don't know, man. They're I guess I should check it, but I have some IMs that are 20 ohms, and they're like 107 dB sensitivity, and they're way more sensitive than these. So I don't know if the ohm rating just makes that much of a difference. But these are not the most sensitive, believe it or not. They work fine off of a phone. But you want to use them preferably with a DAC or a DAP. I don't necessarily recommend powering them from a phone just because they do benefit from juice, so they like a little bit of power. But anyway, let's get into the unboxing. So we got this beautiful box here. We got our little waifu on the front. She's wearing the Lan. She's got some pretty flowers in there, and see the flowers the same shape as the one on the Lan. Bear with me one second here. This box is really hard to open. So yeah, I don't know what it is about Hi-Fi and their boxes, but like they are so tight, it's almost impossible. Like I'm nicking the box trying to get the box out. But anyway, so we got this cool pattern on the front. We got this little flower design here. I don't know if you guys can see that all right. But yeah, it's like a little, it's almost like an upside down pot leaf if you were to look at it that way. Yeah, it's kind of like a upside down pot leaf. But anyway, so you got this like impression on the box here. It's a pretty nice box. It's not bad. Again, it's really hard to open. So I'm gonna pause again real quick. Yeah, like holy cow, this is a struggle. Like if they want you to get inside here, like I don't know, man, that's crazy. It's like so tough. So here we go. We're greeted with the beautiful IMs. Again, got the little upside down pot leaf there. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. Then we got our little case here. This case is useless, guys. You need to do better than this. I understand they're only $40, but this case is really bad. It's just not good. This time around, we only get normal tips. Kind of a disappointment. This is the disappointing stuff. We'll kind of get this out of the way. But yeah, the case is pointless. The tips are okay. They're average. Box is a lot of wasted space. Cable's decent. It's nice enough. It's a cheap cable. It's not a you know, special cable, but it is a cable and it is comfortable. So, and it's nice. It's not bad. So there's our cable, and then inside here we just have the paperwork and whatnot. There's just a bunch of paperwork in there, and then a little QC sticker in the bottom. So the main star of the show are these guys here. So as far as the unboxing experience, it's relatively uninspiring. Pretty basic. It's just a big box. You guys know how I feel about boxes. I don't need to tell you by now, but they could have easily done with a box half the size. But yeah, so here's the cable we got here. Decent cable, black and white braiding. It's got an L-shaped plug on the end. And then it's got their signature big old medallion style moondrop on one end, and then upside down pot leaf on the other. Or if any of you guys remember the band POD, Payable on Death, it was a band from the 90s, but they had a logo similar to this. It was like a little 3 circle or 3 triangle thing. But anyway, that being said, you get a little Velcro strap here to keep your cable nice. So not bad. It's like a polyvinyl, like a PVC. Over time, these cables do yellow, and they do stiffen up a little bit. But for what it is right now, it seems like a relatively pliable cable. So enough talking about the cable. What about the IEMs? Here are the IEMs. They're really nice. They're pretty, not bad. I like the design. They're comfortable to wear. They're the problem I had with the chew. The chew is just a little too small for me. There's nothing wrong with wearing them, but they were just really tiny. At least with these, you have this little wing here to kind of hold on. So when you're like pulling them in and out of your ear, you can kind of grab them, you know, from behind, or you know, grab them from the cable and kind of pull them out. With the chew, it was a little bit more difficult, and it wasn't as easy to pull them out of your ears. But yeah, so we got the steel plates on the front. We got the mesh inside. 10mm beryllium coated driver inside here. And yeah, let's talk about the sound here for a minute. All right, so let's talk about the Moondrop VDSF target, or the virtual diffuse sound field. What is it? Why does it exist? What is the point behind it? And why does Moondrop choose to use it? So the virtual diffuse sound field, or VDSF for short, is Moondrop's tuning to maximize the size of the stage and like the imaging. It makes for a more immersive sound, but at the expense of tonality and like body or presence. So if you're looking at a graph, and this is pretty much all Moondrop IMs, or most Moondrop IMs. Now tonality is subjective. It all depends on the driver being used. Some drivers have good tonality, some drivers have poor tonality. For example, if I were to compare this with the Variations, I would say that the Variations has pretty good tonality, but they both have similar tunings. These are very lean tunings, so anybody that's familiar with the Moondrop target will know that it's a very lean tuning. It's got a good amount of emphasis in the bass. It's kind of a rounded bass curve, so you get that sub bass, you get the mid bass, but then once you get off about 200 hertz, it goes flat, and there's a big dip down to that 200 hertz area. So anything that's in the lower mid region, which is where you find most of your body, most of your warmth, and also most of your presence, there's not much there. It's very scooped out. But what that does is that allows for more space, more area for things to kind of move about. When you introduce those larger frequencies, those lower mid frequencies, it's very easy to cramp the image, or to bloat the image. That's why people say, oh, this IM sounds bloated, or you know, it sounds compressed or whatever. A lot of times that's because the lower mids or the mid-range area is just a little too hot, and that's also where you tend to get a lot of like muddiness. And what the muddiness does is it kind of instruments tend to meld in with one another, and vocals and whatnot, everything kind of melds, and so you have these different these different instruments and stuff. They're fighting for space. So essentially what the VDSF target does is it eliminates that. So it has a very lean kind of lower mid-range area, and that's on purpose because those frequencies are rather large, so you free up a lot of space, and it makes this kind of expansive, immersive sound. So you get a little bit more 3D representation, you get a little bit more play as far as separation of instruments go. It really, really helps with separation. Layering, not so much. That's more a technicality of the driver itself, and also the imaging, the width and the, you know, the depth of the stage and the height and all that. That's more a product of the drivers and the shells, or not so much the tuning. The tuning can affect it, but that's all the same. Anyway, so once we get out of the mid area, so it doesn't start to regain volume until you get to about 1 kilohertz. So then once you get to 1 kilohertz, that's when you start the incline of your PINA gain. And PINA gain is to regain clarity in the vocal area, and also that's where you start gaining a lot of details. That's where you start seeing some like micro details and stuff like that. Macro details you hear up until about 500 hertz, and then once you escape 500 hertz from like 1 kilohertz and on is when you start getting into like the micro details. So anyway, so yeah, so how do these sound? They sound good, but they are very lean. They're a very lean tuning. They may leave some people wanting. They're a little on the cold side. They're definitely a little on the analytical side. And that's just a product of Moondrop's tuning. Again, like I said, it's part of the VDSF target. So they're a little bit cold. They're a little bit analytical. The bass presence is good. The bass quality is very good. The lower mid-range, there's, like I said, it's kind of scooped out, so you can't expect much there. So what happens, or what tends to happen, is the tonality suffers a little bit. Okay, so these don't have great tonality. The tonality is not bad, but compared to other IEMs, the tonality is poor. It just depends on what you compare them to. But isolated, just taken by themselves, it's not bad at all, and you get used to it. But yeah, so I wouldn't say their key point would be, or their key feature would be tonality. I would probably give them a little lower grade, probably like a C grade on the tonality scale. As far as technicalities go, I would say they're a little above average. So the resolution is actually pretty good. For the price, for 40 bucks, I would definitely say they hit their target. Maybe even a little bit better than that. You know, maybe like area levels or ARIA levels of resolution and detail, just from hearing other people's experience. Maybe even a little bit more than that. The drivers that are in here are really good drivers. Don't get me wrong, they're very good drivers. And I would say their technicalities are above average for this price range, for the $40 price range. I think that's why Moondrop priced these this way. Is because they knew that these drivers were very well performing. But I think the only disadvantage that these IEMs have is the Moondrop signature itself. I think it's a little played out, and I think that people are getting kind of sick of it, because it is kind of an acquired taste. Like I said, it's very lean, it's kind of cold, it's kind of analytical, very scooped out lower mids, not much body, not much warmth, not much presence. And then one side effect of that is it kind of amplifies what's happening in the PINA gain region, because you don't have the lower mid area to kind of make up for it and kind of fill out that body. Anything that happens in the PINA gain region has to be kind of toned down a little bit, and that's where Moondrop kind of doesn't do that. They do the opposite. So so the mids they're not, I wouldn't call them hot, not in these. I think they're okay. But normally in Moondrop IMs, the mids are a little bit on the hot side. Not nearly as bad as half the other IMs I've heard. For example, the new Shimminley Encounter Edition, I would say those are definitely on the hot side of hot, like being honky or shouty. But these are a little more laid back, so they're not as bad as other Moondrop IMs, in my opinion. And then once we get into the upper mid area, it kind of peaks at around, I want to say it's, let me take a look here. I want to say it peaks around 3 kilohertz, somewhere around 3 kilohertz, and then it starts to tail off as you go up the frequency range. But yeah, so anyway, so extension is good, treble response is good. They're actually pretty smooth. The timbre is artificial. It's not they don't sound natural. They're not a very natural sounding IM, but they are somewhat appealing sounding. I think they're appealing. I think they sound good. Like I said, I actually really like the way they sound, but to a lot of people, to the majority of people, they might find them a little bit on the unnatural side. But yeah, there's nothing uneven about their like their mid and treble presentation. Everything's very even. Everything's pretty smooth. Like I said, there's a good amount of micro detail. The resolution is pretty good. As far as the stage width and height and depth and all that goes, I would say they're more wide than anything, but their width is still kind of average. There's a little bit of height, but there's not much depth to them. But yeah, so that's pretty much it as far as dimensionality goes. And then the layering, I would say, is slightly above average for the price range. But I'd say their real big strong point is the separation. There's a great separation between instruments. Everything's very distinct and everything's very clear. That is by far the biggest strength of the VDSF curve, or the VDSF target, is that you get a great amount of separation. You get this kind of expansive soundstage where everything has lots of room to play, even though it's not very, very big as far as the space goes. Everything is very well isolated. I'm not sure how to explain it. It's like if you were to have like little dots. So you have big dots and you have little dots. So you could have a stage that's the same size, but because this little dot is smaller, it's, it seems further away from this dot than that one is. Does that make sense? So even though the size or the representation of the image itself isn't the biggest I've heard, because the tuning is so lean, every object is like a smaller dot. Okay, if you were to have a larger mid presence, you would have a bigger dot like this, so when things kind of pan around, you won't have as much room for things to move. But because you've taken that out of the equation, now even though you have the same amount of limits or room to play with, the object itself is smaller, so you have greater distance between objects or whatever. So but yeah, so that's separation. Layering is a different thing. Layering is front to back. So for example, the listener, sorry guys, the listener is right here. So that's the listener. Layering is this kind of thing. So when you have an object behind an object and you can distinguish them as being further or closer or further apart, and that also goes into depth. So, and like I said, the layering isn't that good. It's not great. And same thing with the depth. So those kind of go hand in hand. You can't really have one without the other. But anyway, yeah, so that is the Moondrop Lan. So altogether, like I said, the tonality grade, I'd probably give them like a C. They're okay. They're decent, but they're not anything special compared to a lot of other IMs. There are a lot of other IMs out there. much cheaper than this that have better tonality. But as far as the technicalities go, I would probably give them like a B plus or an A minus, somewhere in that range. They're above average for the price, I would say, and I would say they do pretty good as far as that's concerned. And then again, the VDSF curve and that lean tuning kind of gives the perception of a more expansive soundstage, which kind of boosts the amount of detail that you hear, or at least you can separate objects out a little better, so you can hear them more distinctly and more clearly, which can kind of be conflated with resolution, but it's its own thing. But yeah, so anyway, so the technicalities are okay. They're pretty decent for the price. Definitely not bad at all. But yeah, altogether, I'd say they're a pretty good IM. I find them enjoyable. I think they are pretty good to listen to. I think they're worth the $40. I think that the driver is a very capable driver, and I think that even if you don't like them at first, just give them a little bit of time. Listen to them by themselves in isolation for like a couple days. Also, changing out the tips. These like hardier tips. So if you have larger tips and like thicker walls, like these tri-clarions, these are good tips to use with this kind of IM. If you use the tips like the TRN T-tips, they're too thin and they'll sound too tinny. You really want to use kind of a beefy ear tip. You want something that's really beefy. I'm not sold on the ones that they included here. I mean, they are pretty thick, but I would recommend trying something that is very a stiff kind of ear tip. So just keep that in mind whenever you use these. And then also, I assume this is a silver cable, but if you really want to maximize the tonality out of these guys, go with a copper cable, and like I said, use some stiff, some hard, not very pliable ear tips. Maybe bump up a size. I've been finding out that using a size up provides a stronger seal, and you'll get better tonality from the IMs themselves. So anyway, that being said, that conducts my review portion, and now let's get into the driver portion. Alright, so here's the back of the driver, and you can see it says Moondrop on it. So all of Moondrop's drivers, they're all Moondrop branded. I'm not sure who makes them or what factory they're made in. I assume Moondrop maybe has their own factory, or relationship with a distributor that deals with Moondrop exclusively, or maybe just a couple companies exclusively. But then they got this white. This is called Celastic. This is not like a normal glue. This is like an RTV Celastic. So if you guys wonder what this is, you can, so if you take these IMs apart and you want to substitute this glue here, or quote unquote glue, just get you might be able to find like a white silicone, but what I would recommend is using some black RTV. So go out and find yourself some black RTV, and that stuff will work really good as a replacement for this. It's very spongy, very pliable. It's not like it's definitely not like a B6000 glue, or like a rubber adhesive. A lot of times that's what I end up using. But I've been meaning to buy some RTV myself. But yeah, this is like a white Celastic, so you can use RTV silicone as a replacement for this, or if you have some sort of like white silicone. I think the RTV dries a little bit faster. Just find whatever dries the fastest if you decide to remove these and replace these drivers. And also, I just wanted to show off the dampener here. So this is the dampener that they're using in the Lan. This is a little bit lighter grade dampener than they used in the Chew, as well as some other IAMs. So I assume this driver requires less dampening. I don't know the mesh grain. It's hard to tell because it's just so small. I could put it under a microscope and compare it to other ones, but yeah, it's definitely a looser mesh. So it's not as fine of a grain. So, but that is the dampener itself, and then here's the front, and you can just barely make out the driver in the front there. So, alright guys, so I have liberated the driver from the shell here. So there's the driver. And there is the front of the driver. So this is the beryllium dome driver. Alright, and then just to show you, take a little peek inside the shell here. Oh, there's a little bit of silicone that fell inside there, but so that is the cavity of the shell that helps with the Moondrop curve. So kind of a neat little shell, very high quality molding. Like, this is a very high quality shell. But anyway, yeah, good, nice stamping marks and everything. They did good. So that is the shell. So this is what I wanted to show you guys. So this is a driver that is also used in the Softears volume. It is a 10mm beryllium dome and polyurethane suspension, and I have the same driver right here for you guys to show you. So this is what it looks like with the face on, and this is what it looks like with the face off. And you can see it's got this polyurethane suspension here. This is the PCB of the Softears volume, and then the PCB of the Moondrop. You can see Moondrop likes their yellow backs. But yeah, that is the beryllium dome, and I'll show you a little better here in 1 second. All right, guys. So here you go. So there is the driver from the Moondrop, and there's the driver from the Softears. Coating is a little bit different. It's really hard to show, I'm sorry guys. Coating is just a little bit different. It's just a little bit rougher on the Softears version, but there you go. There's the back of the Moondrop, and there's the back of the Softears. Okay, now for all the dummies out there who are commenting that the Lan and the Chew driver are the same, I will show you guys that real quick. Alright, so this is the Moondrop Chew driver right here, and this is the Lan driver. Okay, let me try to back this light off a little bit. Okay, so this is the Lan and this is the Chew. This is just like a PET or a Mylar coated, titanium coated driver. It's not a bad driver, but it's just a pretty standard driver. And then you have your nice beryllium coated dome with polyurethane surround. And yeah, that's the difference between the two. One is definitely a better driver than the other, so just keep that in mind. But yeah guys, hope you enjoyed that. Anywho, that is my review and teardown of the Moondrop Lan. Oh, and I also have the Olina driver right here. But anyways, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. If you didn't see my giveaway video, it's the one previous to this. Go check it out. Be giving away a pair of Enola VX and a custom made IM. But yeah, hope you guys have a good night. See ya.